Vampires, those creepy, blood-sucking creatures of the night, are easily some of the most iconic monsters in pop culture. They've shown up in everything, from romance to action and horror, stealing the spotlight in movies and TV shows. And of course, the master of horror himself, Stephen King, has put his own terrifying spin on them in multiple stories. So today on Marvelous Videos, we're diving into all the different types of vampires King has brought to life. But before we get into this spooky lineup, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Type 1 Vampires. If you're used to the likes of Robert Pattinson, Brad Pitt, or Ian Somerhalder portraying vampires, Type 1 vampires might end up disgusting you. These foul and ugly creatures have teeth so long that they can never close their mouth, and are so sharp that they can easily pierce human skin. They are humanoid in shape and appear deformed and scrawny. They are the last remnants of Prim, the primordial chaos from which Stephen King's entire universe arose. Created to serve the evil demons and monsters that rose from Prim, Type 1 vampires even served the Crimson King, the ultimate antagonist in King's multiverse. After Gan was created by Prim, he went on to make a physical world, and half of the Type 1 vampires were deployed there to spread chaos. Type 1 vampires are ultimate hunting machines. Their nose can detect blood from miles away, and their stomachs can hold up to half their weight in blood. Their long and prehensile tongues help them drain the blood of their victims and apply anticoagulants for a smooth dining experience. These are perhaps the strongest and smartest types of vampires, as they are descendants of Prim, and they can hibernate for long periods of time. Humans are converted into vampires if Type 1 vampires bite them. These smart creatures are capable of brainwashing humans into becoming their servants, and can also ensnare them in thraldom. Type 1 vampires can create Type 2 or Type 3 vampires by biting them. Although they are not immortal, they have long lifespans, and are surrounded by blue or indigo-hued aura. These auras are representations of their life force. If the aura goes out, they begin to rot immediately, and will soon be reduced to pools of yellow liquid. Make sure to keep your nose closed around these puddles, as they are stinky as all hell. The most powerful weapon against Type 1 vampires is faith. If a person of strong belief wields an artifact of faith, like a holy book or a cross, against these vampires, the vampires will burst into flames. They can also be killed with wooden stakes. King has not explored how these vampires are affected by sunlight and whether they can roam about during the day without any fear of death. The oldest type of Type 1 vampires are called grandfather vampires. They are bald and appear like mutants. Their fangs are sharper, and they also have large claws to help them hunt. Grandfather vampires are usually surrounded by grandfather fleas, which are terrifying insects that feast on human flesh and, like their masters, drink blood. They desecrate the corpses of their victims by laying eggs in their dead bodies. If you see a grandfather flea somewhere near you, you better prepare yourself for the arrival of grandfather vampires or Type 1 vampires. Billy Bumblers, the gray and white striped friendly creatures that look like raccoons and are native to the All-World, were trained to kill the grandfather fleas. A good example of Type 1 vampires is Kurt Barlow, the villain in Salem's Lot, King's 1975 horror novel. Barlow is a grandfather vampire, and his age is unknown. He has unique powers that are not common to other Type 1 vampires, which have led fans to theorize that he is perhaps their leader. His powers allow him to take on the guise of a human, and he has used this skill to take on the forms of many human-like vampires throughout history. His powers seem to grow when he drinks human blood, as his human form appears younger every time he is satiated. We don't know whether this power is common in all Type 1 or grandfather vampires. Kurt Barlow used to terrorize a small town called Jerusalem's Lot, till he was killed by Ben Mears, an author, and his young friend, Mark Petrie. Type 2 vampires. Type 2 vampires all started out as regular humans, until they got bitten by either a Type 1 or another Type 2 vampire. Once that happens, things go downhill fast. First, they get really sick. Then, once all their blood is drained, they die. But if the vampire that bit them mixes their own blood in, the human comes back to life as a vampire. These guys aren't exactly the sharpest tools in the shed. They have almost no free will, and just mindlessly follow the orders of the vampire that turned them. Basically, they're like zombie minions. Dangerous, but not too bright. Type 1 vampires can also create thralls by brainwashing humans without turning them into vampires. So, a good formula to remember this is that all vampires they turn are thralls, but not all thralls are vampires. Type 2 vampires are more voracious feeders than Type 1s, but they are closer in resemblance to humans than their superiors. They have considerably sharp fangs, and they have yellow-colored eyes. These hungry creatures are extremely allergic to sunlight and will die when exposed to any ultraviolet ray, so they prefer to go out at night. Unfortunately, Type 2 vampires do not inherit the long lives of Type 1 vampires and lead a relatively shorter life. They too are affected by holy artifacts like the Rosary and the Cross and can be killed with a wooden stake. If you have read Salem's Lot, you will remember Danny Glick. Danny is a 12-year-old elder brother of Ralphie and was the first victim of the grandfather vampire Kurt Barlow. Due to being bitten, Danny suffers from a mysterious illness that the doctors have no idea about. After Danny dies, he reanimates into a Type 2 vampire under the control of Barlow. He becomes the first vampire of Salem's Lot and, under Barlow's command, begins turning other people in the town. Danny's victims include a baby named Randall Frates McDougall, a gravedigger named Mike Ryerson, a townsman called Jack Griffin, and his mother, Marjorie. You might also remember Barlow's servant, Richard Throckett Stracker, who is notably not a vampire, has no hunger for human blood, and can walk around in daylight. Type 3 vampires. Type 3 vampires are created by Type 2 vampires. This type of vampires are closest to humans as they survive on both human blood and food that humans normally consume. Sunlight does not affect them at all, and they don't need to seek the cover of night to go out. Type 3 vampires are also the weakest kind of vampires as they can be killed using a whole slew of weaponry. Not only are they weak against objects of faith and wooden stakes, but they also don't have immunity against machinery like guns and knives that can kill humans. They retain their free will even after being converted to vampires and are more intelligent than Type 2 vampires. Like Type 1 vampires, they too have an aura, but they are very faint and almost invisible. When Type 3 vampires bite, they have the ability to pass on an enzyme that momentarily disorients their victims and causes temporary memory loss. This helps them feed easily and live amongst humans without the fear of getting caught. They are also not able to create vampires by biting humans. All they can do is feed. People who have psychic powers can also pick out the scent of Type 3 vampires, as they distinctly smell like burnt onions or hot metal. Although they themselves are immune to diseases that spread through blood, Type 3 vampires can spread the disease by biting an infected person first and then an uninfected one. Because of this, Type 3 vampires played a major role in the AIDS pandemic that spread like wildfire during the 1980s. After Type 3 vampires die, their bodies rapidly dissolve away, leaving nothing but their hair and teeth behind. Strangely, there aren't many examples of Type 3 vampires in Stephen King's works. We find out about them in King's 2003 novel, The Dark Tower 5, Wolves of the Kala, which was published with the subtitle Resistance. In the book, Father Donald Frank Callahan, the Roman Catholic priest who had first appeared in Salem's Lot, learns about the different types of vampires. Father Callahan calls them mosquitoes. A Type 3 vampire had infected Father Callahan's friend and love, Lupe Delgado, with HIV, because of which Lupe died. This convinces Father Callahan to become a vampire hunter. Other types of vampires. In the universe of Stephen King, we can find vampires in the All-World, the only world that has the Keystone Tower, the real world in which we all live, and in the world of Salem's Lot and its associated works. All of Stephen King's vampires have some basic rules that they follow. These rules resemble the ones in popular lore, as we just explained in the different types of vampires. If the vampires have to get into a specific building or area, they need proper permission from the owner to get inside. They only need this permission once, and can come and go as they please after it. Even if the owner revokes the permission he gave, this won't affect the ability of the vampires to enter. In The Dark Tower, the Gunslinger, Stephen King's novel first published in 1982, the protagonist and titular gunslinger, Roland Deschain, speaks about vampire bats. If you were a biologist, you would say, hey, they are just carnivorous bats that feed on the blood of other animals like pigs and cows. But King's bats are literal vampires that suck out blood from human victims and turn them into vampires. This might be an inspiration from Dracula, the classic horror novel published in 1897 by author Bram Stoker, as Dracula has the ability to turn into a wolf, a rat, or a bat. It's a pity that this ability has been deducted in modern depictions of vampires. In The Dark Tower 7, The Dark Tower, the grand finale of the Dark Tower series, we find out about the existence of psychic vampires. Psychic vampires do not feed on blood, but instead sustain on emotions. They can also take on any shape and size they want to. Dandolo is a psychic vampire who used to live in the White Lands of Empathica. He introduced himself as Joe Collins, a former stand-up comedian who used to work in America, to Roland Deschain. Dandolo had kept an artist named Patrick Danville captive in his house and had been draining him of his emotions till Deschain stepped in to free him. Although many fans consider Dandolo a psychic vampire, many other constant readers of King have noticed similarities between Dandolo and Pennywise from It. Many fans believe that they were one and the same, and King had to step in to deny the rumor. Needless to say, there is still ongoing debate about whether Dandolo is a psychic vampire or another Tadash monster like the one from It. King's on the Tadash monster side of the debate though, as he has said that they, most likely, are from the same species. Marvelous verdict. These are all the types of vampires we find in the multiverse spun by Stephen King. Which one of King's vampires do you like the most, and why? If you ask us, we're biased towards Kurt Barlow, as he's the one who started the vampire chapter in King's writing career. Don't forget to let us know in the comments about your choice. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, be safe, and thanks everyone.
A dream.